Hi there, we're bringing you a CNN IBN campaign this evening. A young woman and mother of two, Shailaja, has been reduced to a completely vegetative state simply because she went in for a surgery. Shailaja underwent a surgery for a prolapsed disc. She was given general anesthesia. She never recovered from that general anesthesia, and today she cannot eat, speak or move. She's completely immobile, all because her family say an overdose of anesthesia. How scary is that situation? Robbed of speech, movement because of general anesthesia. Some help though has come in for Shailaja. Within days of CNN IBN highlighting her plight, a neurosurgeon in Chennai has offered a cure that will help her regain partial mobility. Dr. Ram Narayan says it involves a procedure of giving the medicine directly to her spinal cord. This will help her stand up and even move about the house. The hospital has now been asked to come up with a relief plan also for her. Shailaja's desperate husband turned citizen journalist for us on CNN IBN to get some help at least for his wife. Justice for Shailaja is a CNN IBN campaign. We're asking, are hospitals getting away with life-threatening medical negligence? We are asking that question. Tweet us at IBN Live with the hashtag Justice for Shailaja. Joining us, Ramachandra, you are the brother-in-law of 38-year-old Shailaja, who has been reduced to that state after that surgery. This happened at Bangalore's Malige Medical Center. We're joined by Dr. R. Ram Narayan. You are consultant functional neurosurgeon, Apollo Specialty Hospitals in Chennai. You are the top neurosurgeon who has offered to help Shailaja. We have Parikshit Dalal joining us. You are the husband also of medical negligence victim. You lost your wife and your unborn child to alleged medical negligence in a hospital in Bangalore, just like Shailaja's husband. Parikshit also became a CNN IBN citizen journalist seeking justice for his wife, and we have Lalit Bhasin, lawyer, joining us. Thanks everyone very much indeed. Mr. Ramachandra, if I could put it to you, the hospital says this could have happened to anyone. This is the risk you run in surgery cases where general anesthesia is given, consent for surgery was taken. If Shailaja suffered a complication during operation, that was something beyond the hospital's control. How do you respond to the statement of the hospital, of the Maliga Medical Center?
Yeah, madam. See, before conducting any surgery, any hospitals or any surgeons will not discuss with the patients. Only in the time of reaching to operation theatre, so they will come with paper. They will ask, you need to sign over here. We are not going to read, and we are not going to ask them more details, because they are showing hurry to take the patient to the OT.
Right. So they were in a hurry to take Shailaja into the OT.
Yeah, madam. Because Shailaja was admitted on 29 November 2009, one day earlier than operation.
And why were they in such a hurry?
I'm not sure, madam, because it's the intention of a doctor or intention of a hospital get her into admission and go for surgery.
And you believe, the family believes, that it was an overdose of general anesthesia and non-monitoring of oxygen supply. So oxygen supply at some point was cut off to her brain, which has resulted in this condition. Is that what your family believes?
Very much, madam.
Right.
Because
go ahead.
Yeah, Shailaja was not had a kind of surgery before operation of this, and she was not fell down anywhere, and there was no bleeding, there was no fracture, there was no other lab report says so there is a BP, sugar, and
she was completely normal. All her vitals were completely normal before she went into the surgery.
Very healthy.
You believe it was the effect of that general anesthesia and cutting off of oxygen to the brain. Let me bring in Parikshit in here. Parikshit, you too turned citizen journalist for us at CNN IBN after your dear late wife also has been a victim of medical negligence, and your unborn child. in a way a similar situation. Again, in the operation theatre, when you filed an FIR, when you asked for an autopsy, you found that your wife had suffered shock and hemorrhage, when in fact the doctors had said it was something else. Do you believe again that this was a gross medical negligence brought on by the fact that conditions in the operating theatre were not being properly monitored?
I believe that is true. In our case, apparently she had been dropped inside the operating theatre and she succumbed to injuries because of a pelvic fracture and the loss of blood because of that. What is even more frightening, and what we came to realize later, is that the doctors had full knowledge that even though she has had a fall and there is some kind of an injury to her, they allowed her to succumb to injuries, not willing to operate and remove the child, which could have saved both the child and the mother, because only when you do a laparotomy and you were to open up the womb would they have realized that there is internal bleeding which they could have curtailed. So this just goes to show that in order to save their own skin, they have actually allowed the child as well as the mother to die inside the operating theatre.
So your wife and your unborn child passed away in the operation theatre because they didn't perform the necessary procedures in time. Mr. Lalit Bhasin, this is extremely scary because it can happen really to any of us. Shailaja's case, where you go in for a surgery, anesthesia level is too high. That's what the family believes. Oxygen supply to the brain is cut off, and the hospital says it can happen to anyone. Surely when you go in for a surgery, you don't expect to come out in a vegetative state because of anesthesia levels. And also Parikshit's case, where you go into an operation theatre where the levels of care have to be absolutely optimal, there is where you meet your death. So when you meet your death in the operation theatre, what does that say for the level of care?
You see, when a patient goes to a hospital, the family members always obviously feel that there is hope for the patient, particularly if the patient is suffering from some severe disease. Once the doctors examine the patients and they take him to the operation table and they open up, there can be so many things which are not foreseen. So many things come up. So the doctor, whether physician or a surgeon, they have to use the best of their judgment. Now you see, it's very easy to allege medical negligence, but the Supreme Court has laid down the criteria that medical negligence must be proved by independent expert evidence. The judges of our courts are not equipped to deal with medical cases because they are not experts in that field. Therefore the law provides, supported by what the Supreme Court says.
So you believe that it's not fair to always blame doctors, it's not always fair to blame hospitals?
Certainly not.
But in the case of Shailaja, I must bring this to the notice of our viewers, the hospital kept her for 9 months and then they forcibly discharged her. Her husband was physically stopped from entering the hospital. Without her husband's knowledge, the hospital shifted her to another hospital. For 6 hours, the family didn't know where Shailaja was. It was almost like a case of kidnapping. Mr. Ramachandra, is that what you find particularly shocking? The way the hospital behaved. If we take Mr. Bhasin's comment that we can't blame what happened in the operation theatre to the doctor, on the doctor, but what they did to Shailaja after she had been there for 9 months was beyond shocking. They removed her from the hospital, forcibly discharged her without even telling you.
Madam, see, I am not accepting this point, because see, when Shailaja was entering the hospital, she was healthy condition. We have depend the doctor's assurance, okay, and we'll be waiting for recovery pace and come out from the operation theatre. So we totally depend on doctor's assurance. So once they have taken into the OT and have done misconducting of this anesthesia dosage and non-monitoring of oxygen.
So you're not accepting Mr. Bhasin's point that you can't blame the doctor?
No, ma'am. In our case, definitely not accepting, because this is a totally failure of their handling, and they have done this operation unscientific manner.
The
They
question
not
is, why do you
monitor-
then take a patient in for surgery? If you believe there are so many risks, why do you take a patient in for surgery? But you believe that you can't blame the doctor for that.
You can't blame the doctor because the patient and his relative, they have to sign a consent form which very clearly says that there are certain inherent risks involved in the surgery, even if it's a minor surgery. So many complications can arise. I fully agree, you see, with what the gentleman is saying, that if there is gross negligence, there is a gross error of judgment on the part of the medical specialist. Certainly, you see, he should be he should be liable for negligence and sued for that. But if it is a question of error of judgment, or if it's a question of two options being open,
But an error of judgment that costs a patient his or her normal life.
it can happen.
You immobilize a patient for life. She can't move, she can't speak, she can't eat. She is reduced to a vegetative state because of an error of judgment.
Error of judgment can arise in all the professions, including our Supreme Court. You have seen the cases.
But when a surgeon makes an error of judgment, he literally plays with life. But let me bring in Dr. Ramnarayan, who in fact is the neurosurgeon who has promised help to Shailaja. Dr. Ramnarayan, before I come to the help you have promised Shailaja, as a doctor, do you believe that in fact there must be much more accountability on the part of doctors? I have a paper here which I was reading on the course of my research on this subject, written by Anurag K. Agarwal, saying that negligence by doctors has to be determined by judges not trained in medical science. It is therefore extremely challenging to decide negligence by doctors. It may be extremely challenging to establish negligence and gross negligence. But when such things happen and these cases are increasing, should doctors be held accountable? Should hospitals be held accountable?
So obviously, accountability is part of everyday life. Even if you are driving a car, you have to be accountable so that you don't hit anybody else. But see, these hospitals, for example, this Mallika hospital, to my knowledge, is a very big hospital where probably these surgeries are done day in and day out. And this is a very, very one-off case, 1 in a million situation probably. So that doesn't mean that, everything in that place is bad, the doctor is bad, no. And second thing is, no doctor wants a patient to deteriorate. Everybody wants the patients to improve because it's a question of many reasons are there. No doctor wants the patients to deteriorate and end up in trouble.
But doctor, do you accept that? Do you accept what Mr. Ramachandra is saying, that this could be an excess of anesthesia, the excess of general anesthesia, and a cutting off of oxygen to the brain? Does that sound reasonable to you? Could that have happened?
I will give you an example. It's a very simple example. I'm sure a lot of thousands of people in our country go to the medical shops and buy cough syrups by themselves. So some people sleep for hours after drinking cough syrup. Some people don't sleep at all. So that doesn't mean that if somebody sleeps for 6 hours after a cough syrup, the syrup is bad. Each individual body is different. My body is not what your body is. Your body is not what the other man's body is. Just because, the same doctor must have given anesthesia for so many patients. It so happens, see, it is not that, deliberately they cut off cut off oxygen, nothing like that. This is not a torture chamber, no?
Let me put that to you, Mr. Ramachandra. Are you willing to accept that no doctor wants a patient to deteriorate? No doctor has the mens rea, as the law says, or necessarily a guilty mind. Doctors want a patient to improve. So the situation, the circumstances there could have been beyond the doctor's control. Are you willing to accept that, or do you believe that this is a pure case where carelessness has resulted in your sister-in-law becoming in this, resulting in this, in her condition?
Yes, of course, intentionally doctors will not do this, but while they are operating the patient, they not monitor this case. Because, ma'am, we have waited on the launch when the operation is going on. So there was a shout about bring the oxygen cylinder. They have lifted the portable oxygen cylinder and entered into the OT. We have seen this scene. So then we become surprised what happened. So patient was entered in operation at 6:30. It was happened around 9:30. We have seen somebody is carrying one portable oxygen cylinder to OT from ICU. So we can judge on that there was a lapse of oxygen supply and there was a overdosage on that.
So you continue to believe that there was an overdosage and this was an error and it was negligence. Parikshit, just to bring Dr. Ramnarayan's point and Mr. Lalit Bhasin's point to you, that do you believe that because medical negligence is so difficult to prove, that you can't prove the doctor was actually being negligent, or was he making an error of judgment? Did he simply think this was the right treatment? Did the body of the patient react in a way that he could not have foreseen? Is it precisely because medical negligence is so difficult to prove that it's so difficult to pin blame, it's so difficult to give exemplary punishment to some doctors, it's so difficult to suspend doctors, because the patient is helpless in not actually being able to prove his case?
I disagree with what Mr. Bhasin is saying, because in our case the postmortem report has concluded that Kapali died because of shock and hemorrhage as a result of the injury which she sustained. On top of that, the CID constituted a panel of doctors from the Bangalore
But you are running from
College
pillar
and
to
Research
post.
Institute, a panel of government doctors who have also concluded that she has died not out of anesthesia but out of an injury which she's faced in the operating theatre. Having a panel of doctors, government doctors, concluding also the fact that in our case that hospital records have been tampered with,
Right.
files have been deleted from the computer, which has also been proved in the forensic laboratories.
But
in
even with
Hyderabad
all this
Central
proof,
Forensic Lab.
Parikshit,
After all this,
but even with all this
Yes.
proof, Parikshit,
Ye-
you're still not getting any justice either from the Indian Medical Association or from the Karnataka Medical Council, are you?
the Karnataka Medical Council has failed to act upon these doctors. In fact, 2 of these doctors are not even registered in the state and they continue to practice. This does not need any medical proof.
Right.
The fact that these 2 doctors are unregistered and continue to practice, and the fact that the CID has filed such a strong charge sheet and the matter is in court, it is imperative for the KMC to act and suspend these doctors pending inquiry. You do not need medical proof for that.
You don't need medical proof for that. That's a very good point. The fact is, some punishment, exemplary punishment, must be handed out. Why is it that so many cases are coming to light and there is no case of a doctor actually being held accountable for these kind of shocking cases of medical negligence? Let's take a short break and come back. When a patient is taken in for surgery and given general anesthesia and never comes out of that general anesthesia and is rendered immobile after that surgery, she cannot move, she cannot eat, she cannot speak. That is the condition of Shailaja, a 38-year-old mother of 2 who's been reduced to that state after a surgery went wrong at the Malige Medical Center in Bangalore. We're asking, are hospitals and doctors getting away with this kind of medical negligence? Is medical negligence difficult to prove, as Mr. Lalit Bhasin is telling us, and you can't blame doctors unfairly? But on the other hand, think of the helplessness of the patient. A perfectly healthy patient goes in, is administered general anesthesia and comes out in that state. What are you supposed to think in the operation theatre? But you were telling me that Parikshit's case, where Parikshit himself has filed an FIR, he has got an autopsy done and he has got a lot of proof. That case is a case of gross medical negligence. It stands that test.
Yeah, as I said, prima facie, it appears to be so.
So what can Parikshit do? Because he's running from pillar to post. Neither the IMA nor the KMC is helping him.
No, Parikshit has got 3 options open to him. One is to move the medical council, and medical council has the power, you see, to suspend a license, to cancel the license of medical practitioners for gross negligence. Second option open to him is what obviously he's already done, filing an FIR.
Filing an FIR.
Criminal case. But the third option is also to go to a consumer forum and to claim adequate compensation for the
But is any of this possible, Parikshit? Because you're not finding any kind of response, are you? You've been engaging in this effort, but you're not getting any kind of response either from the IMA or from the KMC, as we've been saying.
We have explored all the three possibilities. The criminal case is ongoing in the Sessions Court in Bangalore. The stage has reached where the arguments before the charge is going on. We have also moved the National Consumer Forum for compensation in our case, and of course we have been fighting tooth and nail with the Karnataka Medical Council to seek justice and to suspend the licenses of these unregistered doctors and the hospital who have been using untrained and unregistered staff and doctors. The chief medical officer of this hospital continues to be unregistered in the state, and he continues to practice in the state of Karnataka. The hospital is being run by a chief medical officer who is not registered. We moved the Karnataka private medical establishment with a complaint 1.5 years ago. No action has been taken, no inquiry has been initiated, upon which, failing which, we approached the state government. When they tried to intervene in this matter, the doctors went to the High Court saying that the state of Karnataka has no jurisdiction over doctors and hospitals, which is something which we are battling tooth and nail in the High Court as well.
So you're continuing to battle, but tragically you're not getting any justice whatsoever for your wife and unborn child. But let me put to Dr. Ramnarayan. Dr. Ramnarayan, you know, the issue really is the broader issue of the proliferation of these clinics. So many doctors who, as Parikshit is pointing out, may not even be qualified, they may not even be registered. These clinics are coming up without perhaps any adequate regulation, without perhaps any adequate monitoring. Surely there has to be some regulation, because patients' lives are at stake. And when you have all these private clinics springing up, I'm not making a case against private medical care, but I'm just saying that surely there needs to be some regulation of all these mushrooming medical clinics that are coming up, these doctors who are staffing these clinics, the staff that are staffing these clinics, because patients' lives are being put at risk.
Absolutely, there is no doubt in that, because the regulation is definitely important, because as you said rightly, it involves patients' lives. I don't think anybody questions that on anything. Unfortunately, just like in many other fields, in our country probably implementation is always a big issue in many areas. You know, we know that we have we have seen that in many times. Probably that's the reason, but there is no question of whether there should be relation or not. There should be.
There should be regulation. Mr. Ramachandra, what steps are you trying to take? Are you going to take your battle to court? What is the next step that you're trying to do?
Ma'am, when we were in the hospital past 15 months, so they were kept our brother's wife as an experimental body. Okay, in that hospital they were observed as an experimental purpose. They were not insisted to take her in higher better treatment or higher rehabilitation, and we requested them to go for stem cell introducing in the time of beginning stages, but they have not shown even minute interest to take that necessary treatment.
So they simply didn't take an interest. They simply didn't take an interest in Shailaja.
No, madam. No, ma'am.
It's a shocking case, Mr. Ramachandra. You have not only our sympathy, you have our support. CNN IBN is standing by you. You have turned citizen journalist in order to bring your plight to the attention of the country, and we are going to stand by you. We're going to stand by you in your quest for justice. But I'm going to end the show on a hopeful note. Dr. Ramnarayan, you have actually promised help to Shailaja. Do you believe that there is hope for Shailaja's condition? Can you help her? Will she be able to move again? This mother of these two small children who just went in for that one surgery.
There have been so many patients who have been operated, who have been treated, and who have been in coma's vegetative state and who have become conscious. There are so many cases. In fact, I am not able to remember the name, but there is even a film actor in Australia. I've been trying to remember the name from morning, but I am not able to recollect the name. So there are so many people who have
come out
of this.
There is hope. And
I hope, yes. See, I can't say hope, but there is a possibility.
There is a possibility.
Because, in medical science, the biggest probability, yes, there is a possibility.
So you have come forward, you're going to help Shailaja. God bless you for that. You're going to try and do your best to see that Shailaja comes out of the condition she is in at the moment. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Ramnarayan, Parikshit Dalal, Mr. Ramachandra, Lalit Bhasin. Thanks so much for joining us. As we end this show, CNN IBN requests all doctors who can help Shailaja in any way, please come forward. Please come forward if you can help her treatment. We're calling all doctors, calling all hospitals. Please help Shailaja. Contact her brother-in-law, Mr. Ramachandra TM. He was on our show just now. He was there. You heard him speak. You can reach him at 098-457-41142 or email him. His email ID is ramachandra@yahoo.com. ramachandra@yahoo.com. I beg your pardon. We've been asking our hospitals and doctors getting away with this kind of negligence. What are you telling us there? 94 are saying yes. But remember, doctors, hospitals, we're calling you, we're calling all doctors, calling all hospitals. If you can help Shailaja, please come forward. Those contact details are there on your screen. Please come forward to help this young mother of two reduced to that state because of a mere surgery. Thanks so much for watching Face the Nation.